Welcome to Lancashire Business Stories. I'm your host, Paul Lim, and today we're joined by James Briers, the founder of Intelligent Delivery Solutions. We'll talk about James's business journey from engineer apprenticeship and semi-professional rugby, working as a consultant with companies like Microsoft, through to founding IDS in 2015. We'll talk about some of the successes that they've had, including building revenue to over £1 million in year one, and some of the challenges they've faced over the years as well, including lessons from a failed attempt to pivot into a pure product company. We'll also discuss the importance of financial discipline, hiring for attitude and culture, and the value of resilience, positive self-talk, and building big goals. If this is the first time you've listened to the podcast, please hit the subscribe button and follow us. Let's get to it. James Briers, welcome to Lancashire Business Stories.
Thanks for having me.
So your business is IDS, or Intelligent Delivery Solutions.
Correct.
We're going to talk a little bit about the business, a little bit about how you got started in business. And I know you've got a really interesting business story. Some bits you can tell, some bits you can't. And talk a little bit about the future and any sort of hints and tips and advice you've got for other business owners.
Sure.
So let's start off with you. How did you end up becoming a business owner? How did your career start?
I always describe it a bit like Forrest Gump, to be honest with you. I started off, finished school, did an apprenticeship at Ford's, like multi-skilled engineering, basically programming robots, fixing robots and things like that on the production line. Alongside that, I was playing semi-professional rugby for Readiness, and kind of naturally got to a point where I finished my apprenticeship and then pursued the rugby route.
Did we witness not a fully professional team at one point, or were they always? Because it's rugby league, isn't it? So
yeah.
Was it in the amateur days of rugby league, or?
So it was kind of like a bit of a crossroads. I
Right.
think it was like a year or two into being at Witness. Then the Super League was brought into the mix, and unfortunately, Witness were kept outside of the Super League because I think it was the first year in 60 years they finished outside the top 10, so they didn't make the cut that year. So we played in like the Championship or the Northern Ford Premiership, I think it was called. Yeah. And we were semi-pro, but I say there was a bunch of us that just kind of threw our hat in the ring at some point, and had a go at it, just focusing purely.
And did your career just come to an end through age, or did you have an injury? Or?
So sadly, it wasn't age; it was injury. I kept tearing my hamstring, and so it was just I was an outside back, so I relied heavily on a bit of pace, and it just didn't work out. It's just one of them things, unfortunately. And at that point, I had a mortgage, and realised I wasn't going to make my fortune in rugby league. Not that many do either, to be fair, but I had to do some rethinking, and I got into some IT courses online with Microsoft certification.
And robots were the way forward.
Yeah, well, a different kind of robot. So I got involved with automation, for quality assurance.
Okay.
So basically building, virtual robots to simulate human interaction against applications.
Right.
And I was quite fortunate enough to land in an organisation who were a vendor at Microsoft down in Reading.
Right.
So I spent probably 3 or 4 years, got to my teeth on some high-profile projects within Microsoft.
Right. It's quite a big campus down at Reading, and it's quite an impressive place. Yeah, I've not had the opportunity to go, but I've got a couple of my colleagues who've been down and had meetings down there, and they just say it's an absolutely amazing place.
It is. It was phenomenal. Like the setup's great. You had coffee shops all over the place. Yeah. I'm gonna say I think there was Starbucks was involved with the mix, obviously with the
Other good coffee shops are available.
Obviously.
Yeah. And how did you go from there to taking the decision to leap into business ownership?
So I did about 3 or 4 years working for a consultancy. We were a vendor at Microsoft, and I just wanted to have a go at contracting. So I went out on my own. And I did probably a good few years on my own, and then back in and out of a few different other consultancies. And I kind of just got to a point where I'd learned a lot. And, some things I disagreed with how other companies kind of delivered and went about the business. And I thought, well, you know what, it's all well and good sitting on the sidelines. judging people. I thought, well, the only way I can bring anything to to my kind of opinion is to actually go and do it myself.
Yeah. Just before you talk about the difference between being employed by somebody and being a sort of freelance consultant, if you will, what were the major differences for you in that role? Because a lot of people would say when they become a consultant that they own a business. Not quite that for me. I think you own a job and you're a little bit more in control of it, but I think it's a far cry from owning a business. What are the major differences between working for somebody else and just working for yourself?
It's a little bit of flexibility, in terms of what you're doing, when, where you work, how you pay yourself.
Yeah.
But you are very much an employee.
Yeah.
You're just badged up slightly differently.
Yeah. And is it true to say that when you're working as a consultant within a company that the rates are higher when you're actually working with somebody? Because a lot of people say, become a consultant, you can charge a fortune.
When you're a contractor, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, your day rate is naturally higher.
Yeah.
But obviously, you're
not guaranteed.
And you could work 3 months and have 6 months of no work. So that's one of the reasons why you charge a little bit of a premium. So the game is to get extensions and have a line of work kind of ready to roll off the back of finishing with one customer.
Yeah, I think the major difference on the positive side, you've got more flexibility because the decisions are down to you.
Yeah.
But on the negative side, it's also up to you to do the marketing and sales and everything else outside of your normal core skill set in order to make sure you can get the jobs that you need to do.
Definitely. I mean, and to be honest with you, it was another opportunity to cut my teeth in that kind of outside of the delivery mode.
Yeah.
Selling and building relationships and getting referrals into different opportunities. So it forced your hand to do something a little bit outside of the box, which was good.
If there were people out there listening to this who were in work, in jobs where they know there are others who are consultants working in those kind of roles, what kind of advice would you offer them before they take the leap, if they're thinking about it?
There's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
When you're not waking up on a Monday morning and guaranteed 2-3 years of kind of employment.
Yeah.
And it could be weeks. It's a different mindset altogether, and it's about if you want to go down that route, I think you can earn some decent money, but you've also got to be prepared to roll your sleeves up and go and find the work.
Yeah.
It becomes your responsibility. So it's basically, for me, I think there's a huge mindset shift between being employed and being a sole consultant.
Yeah. And I think you need to have some of the skill sets of being a business owner as well, don't you? You need other skill sets outside of that core skill set. Somebody said to me once, in fact, it was one of my first coaches, said, you've got to think of yourself not as a coach, but as who needs to do some marketing to win work, but as a marketing company that happens to provide coaching.
Yeah.
And in the same way, if you've got somebody in the tech sector, they need to think of themselves as a marketing company that provides tech services rather than a tech company that has to do marketing, because you've got to constantly top up the funnel, haven't you?
Definitely, and that's a perfect example. I know a lot of people who've gone into the contracting market, and they've got themselves burnt because they've been thinking very much like an employee.
Yeah,
and you very, very quickly become pigeonholed. And then you've got to rely on just solely, a recruitment company actually finding something and putting you in there. And that's something that, you can actually get yourself burnt with that, because you've not got any control. You're relying on whatever, the recruitment companies are bringing you. But what I tried to do, I'm not saying I was perfect at it by any stretch of imagination, because I still relied heavily on recruitment companies. But I built a lot of kind of good relationships with tool vendors, other consultancies, my first employees in the industry as well. I kept a very good relationship with those guys. And they used me as and when, that they needed a little bit of extra capability as well. So for me, it was around building those relationships, which really mattered in, not just with a recruitment company.
Yeah. So you were sort of jumping in and out of consulting and jobs and consulting. When came the point where you thought, right, okay, let's turn this into a business?
In all honesty, I was on holiday. and realised I weren't getting paid.
Right.
And you know, it was kind of a bit of a moment where you kind of go, well, you know, I've got my wife and my daughter, and it wasn't going to hurt me, kind of thing. But it was just, I think we were looking to move house, and it was a moment like that. You know, you think, well, I can't really, you know, jump up the property ladder with you know, with uncertainty. I didn't really want to go back as an employee, and obviously, as I mentioned before, I'd seen a number of good things, not so good things with other consultancies that I'd worked with. And that's not a judgment by any stretch of imagination. You know, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
And it all kind of came together at once. And, you know, I thought, well, you know, I've got to put my money where my mouth is. And, you know, go at the marketplace with something that I think, you know, would make a difference.
And were you doing, in terms of before you started IDS, were you doing the same sort of stuff as a consultant that you then started doing with IDS, or was it a new idea?
No, it was pretty much, you know, a lot of the stuff we were doing is around automation. So what I was doing was around automation. You know, we talked about Lean Six Sigma before.
Yeah.
It was about, you know, implementing efficiencies within the software and data quality assurance life cycle. Not just thinking about, you know, the human in the loop. It was about looking at how you can leverage, you know, the very kind of simple, mundane, repeatable type of activities, and use automation to move them out of the way, so the humans can actually be a bit more creative. And that was basically the ethos of how we set RDS up.
Right, and when was that?
March 2015, I think it was.
Right.
So we're just coming to the end of year 11 now.
Right, cool. Well, congratulations, because 90% of businesses don't make it past year 10, so you've done very well to keep going as a business in that period of time. And I know you've had a few challenges as well during that time.
I appreciate that. We almost didn't.
Yeah. What was when you said we as well? Was it just you, or did you have a business partner?
I had a
at the
business
time?
partner. So the two of us kind of got to the same points as each other.
You were both doing consulting work.
So Al was he was from a slightly different background. He was more on like the recruitment and operations, whereas I was more kind of a practitioner.
Right.
You know, and we both kind of got a bit fed up and stale with what we were doing, how we were going about it. We got introduced to each other. I think we kind of knew each other because he was on the recruitment side. I was, you know, kind of, you know, a customer to him.
Yeah.
He was you know, finding people like me work.
Right.
And we met. We struck a chord, and we decided to roll the dice.
Give it a go.
Give it a whirl.
And what was year one like? Did you have an office? Were you working from home? Did you immediately invest in premises and get all the staff? Or?
No, I think it was about maybe 3 years before we actually got an office.
Right.
So everything that we did was on customer site.
Remote. Right. Okay.
You know, so we were very much kind of embedded within projects all over the country. You know, Manchester, London.
And did you tend to work together on projects, or were you both in different locations working on different stuff?
So Alistair was on kind of the back office sales type activities, whereas, you know, initially I was kind of...
He was going out and finding the work, and you were doing the work.
Yeah, he was one of the best door openers around.
Yeah.
He's very talented in that respect.
We all need good door openers in a business.
It's a skill.
Yeah.
It's a skill.
Absolutely. Definitely. So, first 3 years, no office.
Yeah.
How long before you actually had other members of staff?
So that was very quick. So our first year, our goal was to avoid becoming a statistic.
Yeah.
You know, we managed that very well. I think from memory, we managed to turn over about 1.2 million in our first year.
Amazing.
It absolutely blew our goals out of the water.
Yeah.
I think our target was about 350,000.
Right.
But yeah, answering your question, we within probably the first month or two, we had, I think it's about 5 or 6 staff.
Yeah. Were they all sort of operational staff, actually doing the work kind of staff, engineers, techies?
So all consultants basically working with us.
Yeah.
So it was good.
And were you making a healthy profit on that 1.2 million?
Yeah, we did. I couldn't tell you exactly the stats around it, but yeah, we did. We were profitable.
Yeah.
I think we paid ourselves a little bit of a bonus at the end of the year, which
Right.
was nice, because again, we both rolled the dice to get started. In all honesty, I don't think I actually told my wife what I was doing until it was done, so I had to make it work.
Yeah, I can imagine how that conversation went.
Oh, she's very supportive, is my wife, so
Good.
I'm very lucky on that front.
Good. So talk us through the next few years and how did things move on and progress from there? Has the product offering changed? Has it developed, the service offering?
Yeah, it has. The face of the company changed quite dramatically, really, in terms of what kind of things we got involved with. So initially we were very much focused on software quality assurance.
Yeah.
But we were getting involved with a lot of digital transformation, so there was lots of data migration. So we evolved and we started creating our own products to help support the data migration side of things from a quality assurance perspective. And then we never stood still.
Yeah.
We were constantly asking ourselves questions from a strategic point of view. What next? What next? What next? So we never rested on our laurels in any stretch of the imagination. And we challenged ourselves every single year to beat the previous. And, I think a lot of the time we did. Some years we didn't. Some years we fell short, but that's business, right?
And what did you put that down to?
It depended.
The good years and the bad years, because obviously, people would like an understanding of what helps companies to grow and what stops them. What are the challenges behind growing?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there's a lot of good fortune involved. I think one of the key aspects to where we've got it right was actually listening to existing customers, listening to potential prospective customers on what they actually wanted and needed.
Yeah.
And this isn't a case of, just literally changing the goalposts just because, customer A said so.
Yeah.
It was understanding and trying to recognise the trends. And as I say, sometimes, we may have listened to the wrong people or we'd kind of misread the room. And those are the years where we didn't quite get it right. One year as an example, we went down the route of, it was over a couple of years actually. The tooling that we started to create was going, great guns in terms of when we were using it as part of our consultant tool belt.
Yeah.
But then, in our infinite wisdom, we decided to, become a product company as opposed to a consultancy. Took some investment, invested heavily in the team, the development team, marketing, sales, etc. But the product just didn't land.
Right.
I think we believed our own press a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I've learned from is don't believe the hype, especially the hype that you're being promoting yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of work with a guy called Daniel Priestley, who's a really well-known marketer nowadays, and he's constantly talking about one of the things that is a great marketing tool is creating a wait list, and the theory of it is you get an idea, but you put the idea out there and see how many people are interested in it before you actually start doing the development work. And if you get enough people who sign up to the wait list, then you're onto a winner, and then you can build it. Whether it's a product or a service or whatever it happens to be. If nobody signs up for it, or the wrong kind of people sign up for it who haven't got the money to buy it, then you're not on the right track. And that's all about customer research, isn't it? It's asking the right questions, finding the right information, finding what the pain points are, and finding how much value people will get from the idea that you've got.
Exactly that, yeah.
What would you do differently, do you think, moving forward if you did? Okay.
I'm joking.
Do you know any good coaches?
Yeah, well, no, but in all seriousness, it is that, and that's kind of where we're at the moment, in terms of we'll probably get a bit more detail in this, but we're at a point now where we're kind of changing and reinventing ourselves a little bit, in terms of keeping up with the market trends. AI is really taking shape. We're not becoming another AI consultancy. We're sticking to our knitting, but we're doing things slightly differently.
Let me ask you about AI for a minute. How has AI impacted you and your business?
Good and bad. I think there's a lot of misconception around what AI can bring. We've had a few conversations with customers that think that they can just replace a human with, you know, some quality assurance that's generated by AI. And, you know, part of that is there's some truth to that. And again, it goes back to what I was, you know, originally doing with, you know, bringing that efficiency in. Using AI in that sense is perfectly fine, and you'll get some really good results. And it's about using it in the right way. So we have some very difficult conversations where customers think that they can just replace us, and, you know, that's kind of, that hurts us, not emotionally.
Do you ever feel like just saying, "Go ahead, give it a go. We'll see you in 6 months"?
I have done that.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes, you know, if somebody says, you know, 2 and 2 equals 5, you just got to let them enjoy that. Do you know what I mean? And so if you believe it, go for it.
Have you had customers who've actually come back to you and said, "We need your help"?
Yeah, more often than not.
Yeah.
More often than not.
And I think if you've got the bottle to do that, you can say that. More importantly, if you can get a couple of case studies, I guess, around that. You know, we thought we could do it ourselves, and we thought AI could help us do it, but we ended up going back to James because of this, you know. Show somebody who's having that conversation with that case study, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's." You know.
The amount of opportunities that we get brought into where we've got to bring in some corrective action measures is quite
I can imagine.
incredible.
When I talk to people about AI, you know, one of the phrases that I've often heard now, and I can't remember who first said it, but it's not AI that's going to replace your job. It's the people who are using AI effectively who are going to challenge you.
Yeah.
So I think it's to embrace it, learn it, understand it, and then use it in the best way to bring efficiencies to your business, and to embed it into things that you can do for other people so they can see more efficiencies in their business. You know, they talk about no coding now, don't they, where a developer becomes almost a prompt engineer to get, you know, the right prompts into AI to produce the code for them, but they still have to understand code, and they still have to understand the product that they're trying to build for somebody.
Yeah. No, definitely. You know, I think it's, and again, just using that word misconception, I think a lot of people, you know, and especially people we speak to, you know, they have this unrealistic expectation that AI is just going to be something, you know, they download, plug it in, and bang, away they go.
It goes. Yeah.
And it couldn't be any further from the truth. You know, there's a lot of foundational work that has to go in place. There's you know, lots of guardrails.
Yeah.
And there's lots of assurances and governance that needs to wrap around AI. You know, and I mean, a lot of people, there's certain people that we speak to are realising that, but I think there's a hell of a lot that aren't. But I think the new wave around implementing AI and AI transformations within enterprise is going to kind of quite swiftly move in that direction, because ultimately it's a transformation.
Yeah,
you know, it's something.
It's the next industrial revolution, really, isn't it?
Exactly. So you've got to put the arms around it in the right way. Make sure the quality's good. Make sure you're basing it on the right data.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you've got the guardrails. You know, to prevent any kind of hallucination, etc. Without going into too much detail.
Yeah.
But there's a lot you need to put around AI to make sure that it works now and it works tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not perfect, is it yet? You know, I asked it. Just as a complete aside, I'm a quiz master on a Thursday night at my local pub, and I asked it to write me some quiz questions, and I needed a list of 10 cities that had 7 letters in them. Yeah. And it came back with 8 cities, and only 3 of them had 7 letters in them. Yeah. So, you know, it's not perfect in any means, but
that's a good example.
It all depends on the prompts that you use and the way you use it and the way you check it afterwards, I suppose. So that's a really simple example. One of the best tools that I've seen recently, especially because you only give it what you need to give it, is Notebook LM, the Google tool. You know, you just give it the stuff that you know is accurate, and then you can interrogate it with all of that information. So, you know, we use Notebook LM and a few other tools to help us to put things together as well. Yeah. But it's taken from our information to come up with new ideas and stuff for us. So
that's the best way of using it.
Yeah.
The difference is you understand what that data is that you're putting into it. You've already QA'd that. Yeah. You know, so you're confident that whatever's output from that is going to be useful and helpful. Yeah. But you still, you know, wrap that with some quality assurance.
Yeah. I'm just going to stop for a second. I'm going to move this up because it seems to have dipped a little bit. These mics are really heavy. So let's talk more about intelligent delivery solutions then. What are the core of the products and services or products that you provide now? Would you say you're a product-driven company or a service-driven company?
We're currently services, but we're moving towards a platform which will underpin a lot of our consultancy services. We're not going to become a product company as such, but we'll be, I guess, consultancy-led platform if that makes sense. And if it's a thing, I don't know, but maybe it should be. But yeah, I mean, from what we generally deliver, there's a set of core products. We get involved with data migration, data integration, data quality, and then there's the software quality assurance on the other side of all of that. And we help organisations, basically move from a legacy system to target new platform systems. In the cloud, we do a lot in the legal sector. We're partners with a few platform vendors. Not just legal sector, but insurance, banking, retail as well. But we do the lifting and shifting of the data, make sure it's transformed correctly, make sure the integrity of the data is good, and then we prove that the system works on the other end as well.
Yeah.
But that's kind of very low level of what we do. Where we're moving more towards, and again, just going back to the AI side of things, is everything that we do today and have done for the past X number of years is the foundations to successful AI. Making sure your data is in the right shape, the integrity is good, quality is good, and then obviously making sure that the models are working from a quality assurance perspective. And we're shaping up our services to be kind of AI readiness, foundational kind of activities to basically give customers the opportunity of every success with what they deliver from an AI perspective.
Data is power, isn't it? But it's got to be clean data.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge, from a very simple perspective, one of the biggest challenges I had is just when we changed our CRM system, try and drag data out of one system and into another system, because everything's organised slightly differently. And unless you're really on top of your data and keeping it clean as a system and as a procedure in your own business, then when you pull it out to put it into somewhere else, it's all over the place. So you end up, even with a simple system where you might have 1,000 data records, let's say, or 1,000 customers or whatever, prospects, that you need to go through it on a spreadsheet or whatever just to do it manually, just to clean all that data up before you put it into a new one. So I can't begin to understand what it might be like when you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of records, which I'm sure is a sort of level that you're working on.
It doesn't come down to the quantity of the data. I mean, that does play a factor, but it's the complexity.
Yeah.
So it's the interdependencies between different systems.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we're lifting and shifting the data from many disparate systems and basically bringing it all together to put into one source of the truth. And they're not always well-known kind of legacy systems. They could be weird and wonderful, non-supported tech. So that the creativity comes in. And there's always somebody's got a spreadsheet somewhere that's kind of pivotal to the success of everything.
And I suppose you could have data that's being used by different systems moving forwards that it still needs to be accurate and able to be accessed by all the different systems that are going to use it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Which can be challenging. So who are your sort of target customers and what kind of customers are you working with?
So we've got quite a healthy legacy within the legal sector. Right. Not the big boys, so to speak. We're kind of mid-market. Yeah. And that's somewhere we've lived and breathed for forever. Since we started the company. We do a lot with insurance companies, banking. We've got lots of experience with that, and we do a lot with larger kind of vendors, government kind of supportive CIs, if you want.
And do you get involved with data security for those kind of? Because I can imagine insurance and the legal sector and those kind of companies are really hot on data security nowadays, cyber security.
It's not our bag. We tend to use partners for the security side of things. And again, one of the things we pride ourselves on is we stick to what we're good at. We're not all things to all men and women. So we're very kind of conscious of our skill set.
Yeah.
And that's again what we double down on quite a lot.
Yeah.
We know what we're good at, and if we start stretching ourselves too thinly, then things become undone. And again, that's something we've learned from in the past. Where we've tried to be something we're not, and can quite quickly become undone.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we've talked about marketing. Let's talk about the business a little bit more. We've talked about marketing. We've talked about sales. We've talked a little bit about finance, but you need to understand your numbers as well. Did you have any kind of finance knowledge before you got into the business?
Absolutely none. Only my own kind of, balancing your own kind of finances. But again, that's one area that specifically over the last probably 3, maybe 4 years I've really honed in on. Understanding, what it means to make a business succeed is to understand the numbers and know where the red flags are coming from, and know what will create a red flag as well.
Yeah.
So thankfully we've got a very good FD.
Right.
And Julie's kind of educated me on a number of times on why I need to be more careful and more aware of certain numbers.
I think one of the skills, I think, as a business owner is to, number one, employ people who are better than you at doing things.
Yes.
And just to know enough about it to be able to manage that, but you don't need to know everything about it. You just need to know the key numbers that will tell you whether, number one, they're doing the job effectively, and number two, whether they're, you're getting the right information from
Exactly. Them. We price every single opportunity up from a GP perspective, and we understand what the percentage margin is of every single job, every proposal. That's where we start.
Yeah.
If something's not looking like, we try and aim between 30 and 35%. As we're moving forward, that's looking like we're probably going to increase that a little bit. But if, for argument's sake, we price a job up and it comes in at 28, 29%, that's not so bad. But as long as we're aware of it, if something comes in at near 20, it's just not going to make any sense to us. No. It just introduces too much risk.
Yeah, and I think that's the key to it, and it's what a lot of people don't do. They don't really price jobs, either job by. They don't understand what margin they're making from individual jobs sometimes, especially smaller businesses. And they don't understand what kind of margin they're making from individual customers over time, because you get some jobs that you get more, and some jobs you get less from. But if you know they're a really profitable customer for you, you can be prepared to do one thing at a little bit, in terms of customer retention, a little bit lower. But you want to be maintaining those high margins with them.
Definitely.
So you need to understand who your A-list customers really from that perspective.
And that's something we've, again, thankfully, Julie does present those facts and figures as part of the management accounts on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So we can have a very, very quick look and go, right, okay, there's a problem. Yeah. This doesn't look right. What do we need to do? And then is it a conversation with the customer, or are we putting too costly resource in there? Yeah. Or whatever it might be. It could be a number of different factors. Yeah. But we get to the solution basically.
And having a great FD is also important for understanding the difference between a profit and loss account and a balance sheet and your cash flow forecast. They're all important tools.
Massively.
As are your debtor days and your creditor days and things like that. Yeah. Having a look at those key numbers is really important in your business.
Absolutely. Talent is key to any success of any business.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit more then, people, because you quite quickly you started recruiting people. What are the challenges and that you see around recruitment and retention, and understanding what people are doing and managing and leading them well?
It's always a challenge. People are people, ultimately, and very, very lucky to have had quite a hell of a lot of very talented people who've worked with us in the past and still work with us today. But we have had one or two interesting scenarios with certain people who have different beliefs and views of how things should be done. And we've learned from that, and we've put things in place. Making sure that from a cultural perspective, we're trying to be as inclusive as we possibly can. one of our difficulties is the fact that we're spread all over the country.
Yeah.
So it's not a case of everyone's in an office,
Yeah,
on a daily basis. So it's trying to keep everybody, communicating and coming together as frequently as possible. We've still not absolutely nailed that. But I think it's one of the key aspects is having, again, people with the talent, having people from a resourcing point of view. We've got Ross, who's phenomenal, and he knows what success looks like in terms of the right fit. So skills are one thing, but making sure people think and act in a certain way, and they fit within the existing kind of workforce is pretty key. And I think that's something that a lot of people get wrong. And they go skills first, and then they've got characters that just don't fit, and it causes a lot of friction.
The question I often ask our clients, and it's a relatively simple one: what would you rather have? Would you rather have somebody who's got 10 years of experience but a bit of a shitty, toxic attitude? Or would you rather have somebody with a year or 2 years experience who's go the extra mile, go above and beyond the call of duty, really fits in, really gets on, and can learn and really wants to learn and really wants to develop and is aligned with your vision and goals? And every time without fail, they'll always say, well, we want the person who's got aligned and got the vision and the goals. But when I talk to people about who they're recruiting, more often than not, they'll go to, I know a chap or I know a lass who, I've worked with before, but all they know of them is that specific role that they worked in, and they did a reasonable job in that role. They might not know them from an attitude and culture viewpoint as well as they think they do. So I think recruiting on attitude is really important. And obviously culture and values are the foundation of every business.
All of the above outstrip talent every day of the week. Especially talent with the wrong attitude.
Yeah.
And that doesn't matter whether you're in IT or whether you're in finance or in sport. Attitude and the ability to commit is what gets people forward.
Yeah.
Having that hunger to strive for something is something that I personally look for. Yeah. Over someone who's said that they've done X, Y, and Z 10 times over. If they're sat in front of me and I'm not getting the right energy from them, then
so how do you recruit on values then? How do you go about recruiting on attitude and values and culture?
Again, it's just asking, I'm not saying the right questions because they're not the same questions every time I'm in that scenario, and I tend to gauge it in terms of on a personal level, knowing the types of people that are in the company, whether they're going to fit. It's, to be honest with you, I've struggled to answer that one effectively, because it's a gut feel. It is very much a gut feel, specifically when I'm part of the recruitment process. Yeah. Now, again, luckily we've got a couple of people in the business that do a lot of the recruitment kind of conversations.
How many people do you have, by the way, now?
I think we're around about 35 people at the moment, and that's including associates as well. So it's not permanent. So I think perm we're around about 20, 21, and the rest are kind of associates. Right.
Cool. So somebody else does most of the recruitment now?
Thankfully. I mean, it depends.
So you got somebody else to blame when it goes wrong.
If somebody's going to work directly with me, I insist. Yeah. I've got to be part of it in some way, shape, or form. If it's somebody who's delivering, and I'm not interacting on a daily basis, it's not that I don't think it's worth my time. It's just I prefer the people who are going to be having that interaction on a day-to-day basis. Make the decision because ultimately it's them that's got to work with the people.
And a lot of people tell me it's an employees market at the moment, and they'll have multiple job offers on the table. How are you finding recruitment at the moment? Do you find it you're getting a lot of inquiries, or do you have to go out and fight for the people that you want?
We get a lot of inbound requests, but then when we go to market to fulfil on any kind of opportunity that we've not got people within the company, or if everybody's like off the bench and on billable work, and we need to go and find new talent, then we seem to be inundated for certain roles. I challenge that to say that it's an employees market. I don't particularly think it is.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people who are looking for work, and there's not as many opportunities out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be wrong on that, but I mean that's just our experience.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You get the opportunity to choose the best of the best.
We have some very good people come through, and at the moment, again, touch wood.
Yeah.
That maintains, and again, from a scalability point of view, I think having good people with the right attitude in the business is what
It's important.
What makes the difference.
Yeah.
That's your differentiator.
And in terms of attracting those people to the business, because I know some companies are more challenged than you are, obviously, at this point in time. How do you make sure that everybody understands, not just when you've got somebody in front of you at an interview, but how do you make sure everybody understands what your values as a company are and your culture as a company is?
Again, something we've not been great at recently, but we do try and have regular company catch-ups, and we talk about what we're doing, what our successes have been, where we're heading.
Yeah.
And and one thing that we are very good at is innovation. We're constantly looking at how we can become better.
Yeah.
How we can be a better company out for our customers, for our staff, and we're constantly just like striving to excel. And again, it's kind of where we are today in terms of we accept that what we do, what we now focus on is very different to what we did when we started.
Yeah.
But it could actually be looked at as very kind of mundane, and that's one of the reasons why we're looking at reshaping a little bit, not changing what we do. Everything that we do and have done is feeding into what's going to be coming from a new world perspective. But we're building like a platform that looks at the AI kind of governance and quality side of things from, as I mentioned before, the data and the actual usability of the AI models themselves, and wrapping it all up with governance. And again, we're giving confidence back to the customers, but we're also getting involved with some cool stuff as a result of that.
Can you talk about any of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's no secret. It's something I'm very proud of and very excited about. But we're looking at how we provide a little bit of comfort back to organisations that want to go down the AI route.
Yeah.
But they're a little bit disillusioned. A little bit kind of uncertain.
Yeah.
What do we do? Why do we do it? How are we doing it? Because I'll be honest with you, I think everyone's playing at it at the moment. AI. We're all still figuring it out, including us. There's a lot of organisations out there from a consultancy perspective that claim to be, AI specialists and experts. And you can argue that AI has been around for 20, 30 years, and it has, but not in mainstream.
Not in the way it is now.
So there's a lot of people out there that are saying the right things, but actually delivering a load of crap.
Yeah. Who would have thought 3 or 4 years ago that there'd be a job called a prompt engineer?
Well, yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what we're recognising that, and we're bringing AI QEF is what we're calling it at the moment. It's very likely to change its name over the next few months or so, but we're packaging up everything that we do. And so we're in a very kind of fortunate position that everything we do is foundational to the success of that. And we're looking to put the arm round the shoulders of these organisations and go, we've got you. Let's look at what you're doing. Let's look at what your goal is. Why are you doing it? Does it make sense? Let's put a bit of governance around the decision first and foremost. If you've got something that we recognise that's going to give you a return on investment, it makes sense to the business and it fits technically, let's create a work package and work it through the process. And then we get into that data quality, data integration. If there's any data migration required, we do all of the stuff we do, but we're delivering it in a very different way. And that's where we're heading. We're creating a platform to support it. You know, so it's not just a bunch of consultants just rocking up, saying stuff, and you know, creating a bit of a documentation. We're going to be delivering a platform that then becomes your monitoring capability, so you can actually see exactly where you're at, you know, against your policies, your procedures, your practices, you know, via a nice, you know, well presented dashboard. And that's where we're heading, you know, from a company perspective. You know, we're historically very kind of focused on projects, which is like time and materials. So we implement projects based on day rates.
And do you have, is the business that you do you have recurring revenues?
So that's where we're heading for this very reason.
Yeah.
You know, the traditional kind of approach has been commoditized heavily.
Yeah.
So it's a very different and difficult conversation in some aspects, you know, that, you know, you're charging on day rates and it's just justification of what people are getting. And it's just something, again, I've done it for 25 years.
Yeah.
That's what I've known. But from a business perspective, from a business value perspective, in terms of, you know, at some point, you know, I do want to sell a company, you know, so from a valuation point of view, you know, and from a kind of predictability perspective, annual recurring revenue has got to be something that forms part of, if not all of, at some point, our revenue base.
And if it's we do a project so we can get the recurring revenue from it, then you know, I think more and more companies are going down that route. I've worked with another software client, an international company. They've got bases in the UK and Europe, and they do work around Europe and in America.
Yeah.
And they've moved. They work on a Microsoft platform basically, but in a very specialist area.
Yeah.
And they've gone from, you know, the old model of doing a project and just selling a perpetual license to having, you know, yearly recurring revenue from the clients, and the projects are just a way of increasing the recurring revenue, really.
Yeah.
So I think it's, you know, I think it's really important in terms of the valuation of your business as well, because if somebody's coming in to buy your business, it's going to be worth a lot more to them if they see guaranteed revenue coming in, guaranteed profit.
Exactly, and you know, it protects everything as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's when it all comes down to it, you know, we're all here to generate revenue so that you can be here next year. If you've got that predictable kind of model, you know, you've got 2, 3, 4 year kind of accounts.
Yeah.
You've got that. I'm not saying you take your foot off the gas, but you've got that comfort to know that you can then build. You know, and you can reinvest in certain things. You know, you can get more innovation coming through, and it just becomes that flywheel effect. And that's something I'm very excited about. You know, we've got probably a handful of prospective customers where they're going to be converting into that kind of more annual recurring revenue model. So I think this year now, you know, from the end of March, when our new financial year kicks in, moving forward, it's going to be very interesting and exciting. It's going to be very different. You know, and I think from a team perspective, with all the staff that's part of it, it's going to be an interesting place to be.
And is your business partner still involved in the business?
No, I say sadly we parted ways a couple of years ago.
Right.
It was a scenario that we both found ourselves in that, you know, wasn't how we wanted to kind of part ways with one another. But it was, you know, again, you know, I don't think it was an approach that I would like to revisit as such from how we kind of parted ways. But you know, I wished him well, and you know, he's moved on to bigger and better things as well. Right. So
good. And did you? One of the things I often talk to people about, and without going into the detail of it, but we often talk to people about whether they have really comprehensive shareholder agreements in place.
Yeah.
And more often than not, people have a very basic shareholder agreement that doesn't cover, I mean, it's an insurance policy more than anything. It covers all the situations that you don't want to happen, but could or might happen. Would you say that you had a really comprehensive shareholder agreement in place that covered all the eventualities, even though you don't expect them or want them to happen?
We do now.
Sounds like that might have been a bit of a learning for you.
I mean, naturally, you know, we went through a little bit of, you know, negotiation kind of phase, which you know, as I said, it wasn't the ideal scenario. You know, and it wasn't something I relished at all.
No.
But you know, we got through it, and you know, I learned a hell of a lot from that. And again, you know, from a shareholder agreement perspective, we've got a lot more kind of robustness in place now.
I think if you can survive and learn from it and do something about it, then it's not necessarily something you want to go through again, but it's worth the learnings.
Yeah, absolutely.
As long as you take some learnings from it, that's the main thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was, like I said, there was a significant driver to that event, which, you know, caused us to have to rethink the direction of the business and what we both wanted, and you know, that was the.
Yeah. So looking forwards then, what would you say is on the horizon over the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see IDS in 3 or 5 years' time?
So again, you know, we the AI readiness side of things is where we're playing, and we're really pushing down on that and building, you know, managed services around that to really help organisations thrive with AI in a more meaningful way, you know, as opposed to AI everywhere, you know, and fostering kind of chaos.
Yeah.
We're looking to bring that calm and, you know, awareness around, you know, what they've got implemented, what gaps they've got, you know, and that nice controlled, measured approach to leveraging AI. You know, and that's where we want to really pride ourselves on by helping those kind of organisations really benefit from a technology it's phenomenal, you know, what it does and what it can do, but if it's used in the right way, you know, and that's where we're heading.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a couple of quick fire questions then.
Okay. That's where I get sweating.
Well, I don't think they're too difficult. If thinking back to before you started IDS, if you could go back in time and offer your younger self one piece of advice, given what we just talked about, I think I know what it might be, but if you could offer yourself one piece of advice, what do you think it'd be? Or to other people thinking about starting a business, what do you think it'd be?
Be resilient. I think resilience is one of those factors around or qualities, I guess you might want to describe it as, around business that I think a lot of people just completely overlook. You know, building a business and starting a business is very exciting. And it's easy to see the nice stuff. The nice stuff is probably 20%. 80%, I'm not saying it's all nasty, but it's challenging. And one thing that I've learned over the past 11 years is around, you know, being resilient in difficult situations and scenarios. Because if you're not, you make rash decisions based on emotion, and that's not a great place to be. You know, I think, and again, I've been guilty of it, you know, in a number of different scenarios of letting the emotions get the better of you. You know, and I constantly learn. You know, again, you know, going back was a significant event that happened, you know, 2 years ago that created a hell of a lot of emotion. And, you know, one of the things that you know, my wife asked me, you know, can you do this? And that was a very kind of jolting question to ask. My first, you know, kind of reaction was absolutely, you know, and then it was like, right, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Now let's get to it. And because of that kind of resilience mindset, I was able to put all of the problems out in front of us and make those rational decisions in a way that had a high impact. Now, they weren't the greatest of scenarios that come off those decisions, but it was a needs-must scenario.
Yeah, resilience is, you can't underplay the importance, both from a personal perspective, being personally resilient, because you're gonna, you know, as a business owner, you get a lot of challenges, but also to make your business a resilient business as well. It's as we're recording this, obviously, that we're in a really uncertain world at the moment. There's a war going on between the US and Israel and Iran, and all sorts of different circumstances are popping up from that, including, you know, utility rises and shipping delays and all the sort of things around that. And having a resilient business is so important. In fact, it's so important. We're doing a workshop on it in a couple of weeks called How to Build a Resilient Business.
Yeah.
By the time this goes out, that will already have passed though. So it is. And for me, I think the thing to remember is people aren't born resilient. No. It's a skill that you can learn.
Yeah.
You know, and there are certain things that you can do to become more resilient.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, it's making sure that, you know, you focus, you know where you're going, what your plan is, what your goals are, understanding what your culture, what your values are, understanding, you know, what's going to drive you forwards, what are the limiting beliefs that are going to hold you back.
Yeah.
You know, understanding all of that stuff and building a great team of people around you as well.
Definitely. Yeah, 100% all of that.
Yeah.
You know, and again, just touching on the limiting belief side of things as well, that's another thing that, you know, it's key. Identify when you're letting them get a hold of you. We've all got them. You know, I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
You always doubt yourself, but it's recognising that you are doubting yourself before it takes too much of a hold. I think that's another key element. You know, I grew up, you know, my mum and dad constantly telling me to believe in myself. You know, stop doubting yourself, because I think naturally that's what, you know, my character is.
Yeah.
You know, and I do feel myself in certain scenarios straight away defaulting to that. But it's about resetting and going, right, hang on, let's get real here.
I think for me, there are two forces in the world which are the most powerful forces that we have around us. The first one is time. You know, you can't speed time up, slow it down. You can't spend it again once it's gone. It just keeps going, and people will always say, well, I haven't got enough time.
Yeah.
Well, if Richard Branson's got enough time to run 4 multi-billion-pound companies and he's got the same time as we have, then it's just the decisions that you make on how you use it.
Yeah.
But the other one is our self-talk. The things that we tell ourselves can drive us forward to do things we never thought possible or hold us back from doing even the simplest of things. So the first thing is to actually listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Listen to the things that you're saying, and to be able to say to yourself, isn't it interesting that I'm feeling this way about what's just happened?
Yeah.
Because even if all you do is go, isn't that interesting, that I'm feeling this way about it, it's the first stage in self-awareness of your mindset. And that will help you then to go on from there and go, well, you know, is this belief that I've currently got, the things that I'm telling myself, is that useful? Or is it inhibiting?
Yeah.
What would be a more powerful belief that I could develop?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people talk about, you know, affirmations and the law of attraction, and, you know, they call it happy clappy American mumbo jumbo. But for me, it's so powerful. You know, if you can tell yourself positive stuff, positive affirmations, beliefs that are going to help drive you forwards, then it puts you into a much stronger position in every element of your life.
100% agree with that. I mean, I think, you know, affirmations, you know, visualization, all that sort of good stuff, it gets you in the right frame of mind. Your energy's different as a result of that. And I think if you keep telling yourself today's crap, and you
it's going to be crap.
You end up, you know, slumping down.
Yeah.
Your energy's not there. But if you're saying, you know, today's gonna be a great day, you know, look at that. I'll love that. You know, look at this.
Yeah.
You know, I had a great conversation. I've had a, you know, lovely cup of coffee or whatever it be. You know what I mean? It drives a different kind of mentality. Just recognising anything that's small, just accept it, celebrate it in some kind of way. You know, I mean, daft little things. I do a lot of stupid things, like my wife and daughter laugh at me, but, you know, we have like a coffee Friday. You know, we all work at home.
Yeah.
You know, we just go to a local coffee shop, we get a coffee, we celebrate the week.
Yeah.
You know, and I always, you know, get up on a Friday morning and I'm like, right, what day is it? You know, and it is joking, and they don't kind of represent the same kind of energy that I do in a jokey way. When I say it, you know, and I'm like, right, no, that's not good enough. Come on, what is it? Come on. And it's just daft little things like that, you know. And again, I'm not saying I'm, you know, Anthony Robbins in any way, shape or form. I'm certainly not. I'm completely opposite, you know. But I do think that self-talk has a massive impact on where you end up. you know, and we're happiest as well. You know, you might not, you know, be sat at the top of $1 billion company.
Yeah.
You know, that doesn't matter as long as you're happy.
Yeah.
And you've got where you need to be.
Yeah.
Then that's okay.
Yeah. One of the questions I often ask people is, what does success look like? So what does success look like to you?
I'll tell you when I get there. That's part of it. For me, you know, it's just generally being happy in the moment. You know, I think there's lots of times in my life, my career, whether it be rugby, you know, or business, where I've genuinely been unhappy with certain things. And I think having more moments where you're happy is a great sign of success than having, you know, a bag full of moments when you're unhappy. And again, it comes down to, you know, your own perception. You know, my idea of success could be completely different to yours. And, you know, for me, being happy is, you know, doing things that I enjoy, you know, and having an impact on people, making, you know, myself proud in the process, and, you know, having, you know that my daughter, you know, watches everything I do, and I want her to kind of strive for something special myself. So I don't know. I mean, I'm probably not really explaining what my idea of success actually is, but it is more around the you know, the feeling, as opposed to, you know, having a Ferrari sat on the drive. You know, I'm not interested, you know, in, you know, Ferrari. You know, I've got a nice home.
Yeah.
I've got, you know, beautiful wife, beautiful daughter, 2 dogs, great family, friends. You know, I've, you know, in the process of building something that, you know, I said as a child I wanted to do. I'm feeling successful as a result.
Brilliant. A coach who worked with me, and I'd had some challenge, and he said, there's one thing that you can, you know, he said, do you talk to your girlfriend every night? I was like, yeah. He said, one thing you can do is you can ask her to ask you at the end of each day, have you had a day you can be proud of?
Yeah.
And to me, those kind of days are, you know, when I'm at my happiest. You know, if I can say yes at the end of the day I've had a day I can be proud of, I know I'm happy.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm constantly like you, just striving for happiness.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to be happy.
That's it.
You know, if you can have a great day like that, then what else can you ask for?
Not
what else
much
can you ask for? So if you had a piece of advice for another business owner, any business owners who are out there, who are in the you know, the world of business ownership, and with every challenge and success that it brings, what would be your biggest piece of advice for anybody?
Again, it's probably out some kind of self-help, but it's not me making it up. But, you know, I've goals that scare the shit out of you.
Big, hairy, audacious goals.
Yeah.
It's a book called From Good to Great with Jim Collins. He sort of christened big, hairy, audacious goals.
You're more likely to strive towards them.
Yeah.
You know, you might not get, you know, the whole way there, but, you know,
it's on the shelf somewhere. Oh, there it is. Look, From Good to Great.
Yeah, I have read that book. Actually.
Yeah,
that's
so
where I've got it from.
So he talks about these massive goals, and I think it's important. You know, I was talking to somebody the other day about this, and they said that if you've got a goal that you already know how to do, it's just a series of tasks. It's just a to-do list, basically.
Yeah.
But if you have a goal where there's stuff that you need to learn in order to achieve that goal, then you know it's going to be a bigger goal for you. It's
You've got to be jolted.
Goal. Yeah.
You've got to be jolted.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I've got a whiteboard at home, and, you know, there's a list of things on there.
Yeah.
If anybody walked into the room and looked at them, and they'd be like,
What's your top personal goal?
Top personal goal?
Yeah.
To retire my wife. In a good way, not in the ground.
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. That's one of the...
To allow your wife the opportunity not to have to work.
That one.
If it's her choice.
Yes,
of course.
Because she wants to, you know, she keeps telling me she wants to change things up and what have you. So, you know, I'd love to be able to give her that opportunity.
Brilliant.
I don't think she'll put her feet up.
No.
I think she's got a lot more going on in her brain than to do something like that. But it gives her the opportunity to do something different.
Yeah. And talking about books, as we were, if you had any, in terms of the books that you've read or videos you've watched or people that you listen to, have you got any recommendations for our listeners who are out there and viewers in terms of good books to read as business owners, or videos to watch or people to follow?
There's tons. I mean,
who's had the most influence on you, do you think?
Think and Grow Rich is probably my favourite. I keep going back to that.
Definitely on that shelf.
Yeah, I do. I go back to that. I've got a couple of different versions of it. I listen to the audio book. I don't know. It's a bit of a feel good. When you go through it and you're listening and little pennies drop every time I listen to it, and different ones as well. And again, it just comes back to that mindset.
Yeah.
It's not a hoodoo or anything like that. There is a science to it. In terms of how you think and how you go about your business.
I think it's amazing that a book that was written in the 1930s is as relevant now as it was when it was first written. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yeah. And he wrote it because he was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie, who was the originally Scottish and industrialist over in the States. And he wanted to understand why people were successful. Yeah. And he went out and interviewed really successful people and people who were sat on the streets. And he discovered that it wasn't anything to do with their background, whether they were wealthy to start with, what kind of education they'd had, because there were some rich people some people who come from rich families who were out on the streets begging, and some people who were now very successful but had come from a really a poor background. And it was all about mindset. Yep. It was all about thinking in order to have the success that you want.
Self-talk.
Yeah. I think the only thing with Think and Grow Rich, because it was written in the 1930s, there is it's a bit gender biased. You've got to take it. You've got to take it with the way that it was done. But
there is a more kind of modern version that I think I've got it on Audible. I'd have to my phone's over there somewhere, and it kind of takes, because there's a certain kind of religious connotation in there and things like that, and it kind of generalises some of that.
Yeah. And I've been fortunate enough to meet a lady called Sharon Lecter, who's involved with the Napoleon Hill Foundation.
All right.
Who actually helped Robert Kiyosaki on Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's a great book as well.
Yeah, really good book. And also helped to write out there was a book, a manuscript that Napoleon Hill had done for a book called Outwitting the Devil, that I think it was Outwitting the Devil, that they'd lost for a while, that then came back into sight, and Sharon helped to write that as well. And she's also helped to write Think and Grow Rich for Women as well, which is specifically designed and written for ladies, and there's all sorts of different stuff out there. So, and she's an amazing woman as well, Sharon Lecter.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm listening to a lot of audibles.
Yeah.
I've got, something similar to this at home in terms of books, and some collect dust, others not so much. It depends on what time I've got on my hands.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do read a lot. Oversubscribed as well. It's another great book as well.
Yeah, another Daniel Priestley special.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time. James, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. It's been a bit of a rollercoaster journey for you in one way or another with the business from your starting point, but I'm sure our listeners and viewers will have learned from it and have some stuff that they can take away and apply. Thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the success in the world with IDS moving forwards, and look forward to talking to you some more.
I appreciate it, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, James.
Outstanding.